There is a pattern I have tracked across every Mercury retrograde since 2018. Not the generic stuff, not the delayed flights and the miscommunications and the ex texting out of nowhere. Those things happen, but they are symptoms, not the pattern itself. The pattern is more specific than that, and it centers on one moment that most astrology content skips entirely: the station. The exact day, sometimes the exact hour, when Mercury appears to stop moving in the sky and begins its backward journey. Station days are treated as start dates. Retrograde begins on this date. Set your calendar. Brace yourself. But that framing misses the actual mechanism of what happens at a station, and the mechanism is where the pattern lives. Stay with me on this, because what I have observed about station days changes how you navigate not just this retrograde, but every retrograde that follows. A planet does not actually stop. You know this. Retrograde is an optical illusion created by relative orbital speeds. Mercury orbits the Sun faster than Earth. When it laps us and pulls ahead, it appears from our perspective to slow down, stop, and reverse. Like watching a car on a parallel highway that was going faster than you gradually appear to move backward as it changes lanes ahead. The car did not stop. Your perspective shifted. But here's what matters for us. Even though the stop is perceptual rather than physical, the effects at the station point are disproportionately concentrated. It is the bottleneck, the narrowing, the moment of maximum compression, and compression creates intensity. I mentioned yesterday that this retrograde has a twist because Mercury is stationing inside the active field of the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. That field is still live, still within 1 degree of exact. Today I want to focus not on the retrograde itself, but on what happens at the station in the first 48 hours. Because the station window is where most people stumble, and it is also where the most useful information surfaces. Here is the pattern I have tracked. On station day itself, within roughly 12 hours before and after the exact station, something specific tends to happen. A piece of information that was hidden, forgotten, or overlooked suddenly becomes visible. Not through effort, not through searching. It arrives, unprompted. A message you forgot you sent resurfaces. A conversation you thought was finished reopens. A document you lost reappears. A person you had not thought about in months crosses your mind or your path. And it is never random. The thing that surfaces at the station is always connected to whatever the retrograde is going to spend the next 3 weeks processing. It is like the opening card of a hand you are about to play. You do not yet know how the game unfolds, but the station shows you the suit, tells you what territory you are in. I started tracking this in 2018, and it has held across every single Mercury station since. 14 stations. The pattern does not miss. Something surfaces at the station that previews the retrograde's theme. The question is whether you recognize it in the moment or only in hindsight. I want to give you a frame for why the station concentrates energy this way, because the mechanics matter. Think of a river. A river flowing forward is powerful, but predictable. The water moves. You can navigate it. You know which way is downstream. Now imagine a section of that river where the current slows to zero. Not a gentle easing, a full stop. The water is still arriving from upstream with the same force, but it has nowhere to go. What happens at the point where flowing water meets stopped water? Turbulence. Debris that had been carried along in the current suddenly has nowhere to go and starts circling. Sediment that was invisible on the riverbed gets kicked up into the water column. Things that were hidden under the flow become visible. That is a planetary station. The energy that has been flowing in one direction hits a wall. The forward momentum converts to turbulence, and the turbulence makes things visible that the flow had been concealing. I have been using this river metaphor for years because it is the closest thing I have found to what station energy actually feels like. There is a physical quality to it. If you have ever been in water when a current shifts, you know the sensation. It is not pain, it is disorientation. The ground under your feet is the same, but the force acting on your body has changed direction, and for a moment you do not know which way to lean. Most people interpret that disorientation as something wrong. They panic. They grab for the nearest solid object. And in astrology terms, grabbing for the nearest solid object during a station usually means reverting to an old decision, an old pattern, an old relationship, because it feels familiar in a moment when nothing else does. Do not grab. Float. The disorientation passes in 48 hours. What remains after the turbulence is the information you need. The first 24 hours after the station are the most turbulent period of the entire retrograde. This is the part that gets lost in the generic retrograde advice. Most content about Mercury retrograde treats the whole 3-week period as uniform. Same level of disruption, start to finish. But that is not how it works. The retrograde has a shape. The station is the peak of turbulence. The first week is the adjustment period, when the current is physically reversing and everything caught in the flow is disoriented. The middle period, week 2, is the drift. The water has found its new direction. Things are moving backward, but at least they are moving. The turbulence drops. The drift phase is actually where the best retrograde work happens. Reflection, revision, rethinking. That is productive backward motion. Then the final days before Mercury stations direct bring a second spike of turbulence as the water stops again and prepares to flow forward. 2 stations, 2 turbulence peaks, 3 weeks of drift between them. That is the actual shape of a retrograde. And the reason most people's retrograde horror stories cluster in the first and last 3 days, not the middle, is that the stations are the compression points. The midpoint is almost calm by comparison. Now layer in what is happening right now. Mercury is stationing at 19 degrees Pisces, inside the active orb of the Saturn-Neptune conjunction at 0 degrees Aries. I explained yesterday what the conjunction field does to retrograde Mercury. It creates a specific interaction where the clarity from the conjunction gets tested by the communication disruption of the retrograde. But at the station, that interaction is at maximum intensity. The turbulence that makes hidden things visible is operating inside a field that just delivered structural clarity to people. The things that surface today and tomorrow will not be random retrograde debris. They will be specifically related to whatever crystallized for you around February 20th. The conjunction handed you a new structure. The station is kicking up the sediment around that structure right now, showing you what is buried in the foundation, what was hidden underneath the clarity that arrived. Let me tell you what I noticed during the last Mercury station in this kind of field. It was not identical, but there was a similar configuration in October 2023 when Mercury stationed retrograde during a tight Mars-Pluto opposition. Different planets, similar principle. Active field plus station equals amplified surface material. What I tracked that time was that the things surfacing at the station were not new problems. They were old, unresolved dynamics that the active field had been holding in suspension. The Mars-Pluto opposition had brought intensity to power dynamics in relationships. And at the Mercury station, the specific communication breakdowns that surfaced all pointed back to unspoken power imbalances that had been hidden under polite language. The station did not create the imbalance. It made the imbalance visible by stopping the flow that had been concealing it. Apply that principle here. The Saturn-Neptune conjunction brought structural clarity. The Mercury station today is going to surface the things that were hidden underneath the old fog. Not new confusion. Old confusion that the clarity displaced but did not resolve. The fog lifted and revealed clear ground. But the station kicks up the dust and shows you what was buried in that ground. Some of it you will want to keep. Some of it you will need to release. The station just shows you the inventory. There is a practical element I want to walk you through, because this channel is about observation, not just explanation. Here is what to track over the next 48 hours, tonight and tomorrow. First, pay attention to what arrives uninvited. The station surfaces things without your effort. A notification, a memory, a dream, a name. Do not go looking for meaning. Let it come to you. What shows up in the first 24 hours of a station is the retrograde showing its hand. Write it down. Do not interpret it yet. Just record what surfaces and when. Second, track your energy. Station days have a physical signature that I have noticed consistently. A restlessness that does not attach to any specific cause. An inability to focus that feels different from normal distraction. Almost like your body knows the current has changed before your mind catches up. If you feel scattered today, if your sleep is disrupted tonight, if you cannot settle into a task, that is not anxiety. That is station turbulence. The river stopped. Your nervous system registered the change before your conscious mind did. Do not fight it. Do not medicate it. Observe it. Let the body process the directional shift. Third, watch what conversations get reopened. Station Mercury has a way of bringing back unfinished dialogues. Someone will reach out about something you thought was resolved. A topic you closed weeks ago will come back up in a way that feels unexpected. And inside this conjunction field, the conversations that reopen will specifically relate to structures, boundaries, and commitments. Things that were foggy before the conjunction and clear after. Someone is going to ask you to revisit a decision you just made. The question is not whether this happens, it is how you respond when it does. And the answer for the station window specifically is to listen without reacting. Gather the data. Do not negotiate. Do not defend. The station is an information gathering phase, not a decision phase. The Sun approaches a conjunction with the North Node on Thursday, 2 days from now. While Mercury is freshly retrograde, still in the turbulence window, and that is significant because the North Node represents direction, purpose, evolutionary trajectory. The Sun illuminating the North Node while Mercury is scrambled means a flash of directional clarity is coming even as the communication channel stays disrupted. You will see where you are going. You will not be able to explain why or how yet. That is Thursday's territory, and I will walk you through it then. For now, here is the simplest version. Today, Mercury stopped. The river went still. The turbulence kicked up whatever was hidden under the current. Your job for the next 48 hours is not to fix anything, not to resolve anything, not to react to anything. Your job is to notice what surfaces. Document it. Let the sediment settle. What remains visible after the turbulence passes is the material the retrograde needs you to work with. Everything else washes downstream. The next 3 weeks have a shape, and now you know the shape. Station turbulence, drift, station turbulence. 2 peaks with calm water between. Most people spend the entire retrograde braced for impact. You can spend it navigating with a map. That is the pattern, and now you know where to look.